we'll start it here. So Larry wrote an article in which he got together Jim Nagy, who is the executive director of the Senior Bowl and a multi-decade NFL scout. Jeremiah Daniel, another multi-decade NFL scout, works for NFL Network. You all know who Kurt Warner is. Louis Riddick, obviously. I think Louis Riddick has been awesome on Monday Night Football. We've talked about it. I think he is fantastic. And then Greg Cosell, who is Howard Cosell's son, I think, or maybe he's related. He's in that family. NFL films guy, scout guy, breaking down quarterbacks for years. And Larry asked him a question. What are the Saints' long-term plans at quarterback? And as these guys are discussing, in my opinion, I think I saw three different schools of thoughts emerge. We'll explore each one. The first, is he on the roster now? The second, is he in the NFL just somewhere else at this moment? Third, is he still in college? Let's start with on the roster now, because I think this is fascinating in that a lot of it represents almost a complete disconnect from what you hear about a lot of the more local guys that follow the Saints team. And for what it's worth, Larry is maybe moderating, interviewing. He's not offering his opinions in this. So this is all these outside voices, right? Who's on the roster? It's tough. It's Jameis Winston and it's Taysom Hill. What I found shocking is that almost no one in that group seemed to believe that Taysom Hill will be the guy. In fact, the closest that anyone gets to saying that is that Louis Riddick basically allows for the fact that, look, Sean Payton sees him all the time in practice. Maybe he knows some things that we do not. But outside of that, like, no one saw Taysom as the long-term option. They like him as a piece. He's creative. They don't see him as a successor to Drew Brees. That's kind of different than what you hear from a lot of the beat writers who maybe think that Taysom is kind of being positioned as that guy. So if it wasn't Taysom, who's the guy they like on the roster? They all think that Jameis is the better option. Obviously, they love his arm talent. They're worried about his lack of athleticism. But hearing Kurt Warner talk about Jameis Winston was maybe the most interesting part to me. Because in Kurt Warner's mind, it's not that Jameis Winston's interceptions, all the mistakes that he makes, it's not that those mistakes are necessarily resulting from him not seeing the defense. Like, throughout Warner's answer, he is continually praising Winston's ability to analyze and identify defenses. I think he believes that Jameis just isn't judicious enough, right? That he sees the right information, he just then takes that information and makes the wrong decision with it. Like, he tries to be too aggressive. He tries to be too risky. And so if that is kind of the accepted belief with Jameis, well then, you know, what a lot of people come around to is that they kind of, in this panel, they kind of think that Sean Payton's a good enough play caller where, you know, hopefully he can still maximize those advantages while taking away the disadvantages, right? Can he position Jameis to minimize the risk, where you're still taking advantage of his natural aggression, you're taking advantage of his ability to read defenses, but just try to teach him not to make, quite frankly, such dumb decisions or as be more judicious with the football, as Kurt Warner put it. So that's on the roster. It feels like Jameis is a clear answer. Where, what about, is he somewhere else in the NFL right now? And it's a bit intriguing as well because the names aren't terribly exciting. Daniel Jeremiah kicks this section off by saying that he believes that, and Danny Musso, just signal me if you want to get involved if you hear anything here. But he says that Sam Darnold is the perfect fit for the New Orleans Saints. I see you rolling your eyes, Musso. I see you, Danny, as well, reacting with a bit of hesitation. And look, and it's kind of funny because we have, you know, we're not super high on Darnold, but we've been joking on this show that kind of like the best defense of Sam Darnold is that he's been forced to play for Adam Gase, right? I mean, can anything be more damning for Adam Gase than what Ryan Tannehill has gone on to do when he's finally gotten away from Adam Gase? I mean, as we said yesterday, Ryan Tannehill may be pushing right now this season to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. He's not there yet, but he's trending that direction, and it's because he finally got to leave Adam Gase. So I've always kind of said this tongue-in-cheek, though, about Darnold, but it seems like there may be more truth in this than I fully realized, because, like, to a man, everybody on this panel basically agrees that while they are not true Darnold believers, like they don't really believe in Darnold, it's just impossible to completely write him off right now because the absolute train wreck of a situation that he currently in for the New York Jets. So, like, Darnold doesn't do it for me, but there are some advantages, right? You'd get him on that rookie contract. I believe you have his 4th year, and then you could take the 5th year option if you wanted. So rookie QB contract, even as a top pick, is still a pretty nice piece financially. I guess for me, ultimately, it would be what do you have to give up to get Darnold? That would be the ultimate price. Someone did actually go on to mention Mitchell Trubisky's name, but that quickly got kind of hand-waved away and shut down. The point being is that Sam Darnold is a name I don't love. I do not think it should ever be choice one, and so much of it is dependent on the price, but he is a name out there in terms of somebody that's already available that could possibly be an answer there. What about another guy that just got benched recently, Dwayne Haskins? I know everybody's not high on Haskins. I think I'm actually a bit higher on Haskins just purely physically than I am Darnold. The major red flag to me, though, is what's going on with him and Ron Rivera. Remember, Ron Rivera didn't just not name him the starter. He bumped him all the way down to third string. And it wasn't like he was playing terribly. I mean, people have laid out the numbers, right? Daniel Jones, statistically, he's played way worse than Dwayne Haskins has. But you hear about Rivera not liking Haskins' work ethic. And when you're talking about Sean Payton and work ethic, that's just a massive red flag to me. So I think Warner probably said it best, right? You do this circular conversation. You mentioned Darnold. You mentioned Haskins. Even Mitch Trubisky gets a name mentioned. But it's like, if you're looking at that grouping of players, how is anybody in that group a better option than Jameis Winston, right? It just, I don't see it. Like out of Darnold and Trubisky. Now Winston may be a little more expensive. We'll see what the market dictates in this offseason. But thus far, if you're talking about being on the roster already, being in the NFL, I still kind of like Winston. Now, what about college? And I think it was Jim Nagy who laid out that the Saints are going to be in a tough spot, right? 2021 is going to be a tough draft for them to try to find that guy because essentially when you pick in the middle of the first, like you assume the Saints will, late teens, early 20s, you're in a bit of a no man's land, right? Because other teams are already overreaching for quarterbacks, which means that you either yourself have to get in that battle and you have to commit tons of resources to moving up and taking a quarterback, or you have to overreach yourself, or you don't take a quarterback at all. For whatever it's worth, the Saints have proven they are very willing to trade up in these situations. I mean, in a time where the accepted kind of analytical roster building has been trade back, amass picks, and just, try to work on a volume scale, the Saints have consistently traded up. And if they fall in love with a guy, remember, they were going to draft Pat Mahomes. Had the Chiefs not traded in front of him, the Saints would have. I bet you now the Saints wish that they would have had some capital or tried to put together some package and tried to trade up like the Chiefs did and get that pick. So, like, if they absolutely fall in love with the guy, look, they gave away a lot for Marcus Davenport. And I think that's going to start to pay dividends here. But they will be willing to give away a lot for a quarterback if you love him. Now, in terms of guys that could potentially still be available, I think there's three interesting names that get mentioned here. Y'all heard of Trey Lance, the North Dakota State quarterback. Not going to get – so North Dakota State's not playing this year, right? They played the one game, but that's it because there's no FBS. So you're not going to get all the film that you want. Word on the street is, though, he's super athletic, great arm talent. Like, to me, the takeaway from Lance just seems that he's very raw, right? But I don't necessarily hate raw. I mean, yes, it's tough to project, and raw can be very volatile because you don't know which direction it will go. But I do like Sean Payton's ability to develop a QB. The next name that gets mentioned, but they don't spend a lot of time on this guy, which I find interesting. Beyond just saying that he's a name that scouts are starting to buy into, but the guys on the panel saying they need to just do some further research themselves. But how about a guy that we mentioned, Zach Wilson from BYU? A quarterback who is putting up absurd numbers right now on the year right now. And what's BYU, 4-0, I believe? I have to check. It's either 4-0 or 5-0. Actually, it's 5-0. I can tell from the numbers because he's completing 78% of his passes. He's thrown for over 1,600 yards to the tune of 328 yards per game. He's averaging 12 yards per attempt, which is right at what Burrow did last year. That is elite of the elite. He's got 12 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he's run for 6 touchdowns as well. So Zach Wilson, while maybe not the most fully fleshed out idea right now, somebody to watch that could still be available in that Saints range. And then how about this name? A name that you may not be playing football anytime soon, Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask for the New Orleans Saints, right? Not a first rounder, most likely. if you're trying to do like a Drew Lock, maybe like a Gardner Minshew, which with those guys' stocks are at right now are a bit up and down. Like it's hard to feel great if that's your selling point, but they still, those are value picks in terms of what you got him out in the league versus where you selected him. I mean, Kyle Trask could fall into that category maybe. I mean, the best case, maybe you get like a Dak sort of type of guy. But the thing about Trask is he's a bit of an odd case where, unlike maybe a Wilson or a Lance or some of the other guys we mentioned where the physical potential is highest on Trask, you really like the intangibles, right? You like the fact that he came into Tiger Stadium, that environment last year, and despite not having played in years and years, he led, multiple 75-yard touchdown drives and made it a good game. You like his decision-making that you're seeing this season. There's a lot to like from the leadership and mental standpoint, but as Cosell says, quote, Trask has outstanding size and physical presence, but he is a prototypical QB or prototypical pocket QB who lacks any special traits as a passer, and goes on to say he probably projects as a backup. So, like, in the end, Trask, someone like that could represent great value. But I kind of do feel that if you're going through the draft, I would like to see the Saints take a bit more of a shot and see if you couldn't maybe raise your ceiling more. Maybe you fall in love with a guy, you trade up, and you just trust yourself to be able to make it work. So now we've gone through the three categories. We've gone through on the roster, in the NFL on another roster, or still in college football. And I don't know. Okay, I'll before I give who I liked best out of everybody I just talked about, where do y'all sit now that we're on the other side of this? Out of every name that we just mentioned, Darnold, Trubisky, Jameis, Taysom, Trask, like, who do y'all like for maybe the Saints quarterbacking future?
I like the idea of Jameis because he's in the system already this year and he's learning it. That being said, we haven't seen him play.
Yeah.
The last images we have of Jameis Winston are the interceptions in Tampa, but he also led the league in passing.
And the camp report was about...
The camp report was great.
It was great, but then like in further talking to people, it seemed like it was maybe a bit more of a mixed bag than I realized.
And he wasn't named the backup. Taysom Hill was listed as first backup.
Which the Saints seem to love, and granted, that kind of goes with what Louis Riddick was saying, the Saints seem to love Taysom more than anyone else does.
That is true. But I like the idea of Jameis already being in the system, having a year to be in that system. I don't know if maybe they sign him long-term after this year, but Jameis, having not played at all this year, and probably not going to get a long-term deal anyway, so they could probably sign him again short-term.
Not a 1 year, but yeah, certainly
not a 1 year,
like
but
3
maybe
year.
3 years. Give him a shot. If it doesn't work out, maybe look to shop him. And I think they might also take somebody in the draft. Maybe they don't take someone in the first round, but maybe this is finally the year they draft somebody again if they can.
Trask's second round sounds super intriguing.
So there you go.
Right?
I mean,
if he's still there,
I think you maybe run with Jameis since he's been in it a year. Give him a shot at it. See if he can run the offense, and then draft somebody to potentially also move on with.
Danny, what are you thinking?
I don't think the future quarterback is on the roster right now. I don't think it's going to be Taysom or Jameis. But I do kind of like the idea of Sam Darnold, even though he's been really bad, because he has potential for sure.
Sam Darnold has all the physical traits and everything, and like we said, it's so funny that Adam Gase has become such a bad football coach that the best argument you can make for Sam Darnold is that, he's had to deal with Adam Gase. Like, let's give the guy a break. Yeah. Look at Tannehill.
Tannehill's been great after leaving Gase. But I like Trey Lance a lot, but I think I don't see the Saints going like top 5 pick. I don't see them going up that high. If he goes that high, I don't see them going that high.
And that's the thing, though. I mean, like, so much of this is kind of, when it comes to the college scouting level, so much of this is pointless because the amount of momentum that a quarterback can gain in the pre-draft process is absurd, right? Like, if we did this a few years ago, I don't think we would have been talking about Josh Allen in the middle of the season, and then look at what happened to him as the year went on. So we'll see. But in my opinion, after listening to all this, reading all this, I'm with you, Musso. I feel like Jameis, out of all the options we just discussed, I feel like Jameis Winston represents the best option. And if you're trying to make a seamless transition, right, or as seamless as you can from Brees to the post-Brees era, kind of like you were saying, Matt, even if he's not the long-term guy, he can still make that transition period better than I think any other name that we went over. And look, if you're wrong, as long as you're not too financially committed, whatever. then you get a high pick in 2022. And then if you want to spend a lot of draft capital, maybe you go sell out for a quarterback you fall in love with. That makes a lot of sense. So this is all a long-winded way of saying the Jameis era is knocking on the doorstep. Get hyped. Jameis Winston no more. Clear vision can't be stopped. Jameis Winston, your quarterback of the future. All right, when we get back, we'll go through this week's matchups. And then we got Larry Holder. We'll pick his brain and see where he landed, as he is the one who actually put together this panel here on OTB OT.
OTB OT.